Good, af- good afternoon, good morning. I understand that we normally would have people joining from all over the globe. So wherever you are, where you are calling or dialing in, we hope you are well and we greet you on this special day. This is a very interesting topic, interesting session, and it's very reflective for a lot of us, but particularly some of us that have cut our teeth in business and corporate setting. Um, it's something that we all at some point have thought about our struggle with. So we are discussing faith and leadership today. We have an interesting cast of panelists. My style is to really allow people to talk. So what we will start with, I'll call on the panelists and I'll call on each one 2 minutes. Tell us 2 to 3 minutes, just tell us about yourself and your journey. If you don't, I like to also, I think everyone here has go by their Muslim name, but if you don't go by a Muslim name like me, Bola, my Muslim is Abdul Wahab, please let us know if you don't mind as well. But I would just like to start by saying that this conversation, we are here with an open mind. We are here to also learn from everyone, to learn everyone's journey, because life is a journey, like we all know. And we pray that we are able to live life the way we are supposed to live. And we all want to make sure that we toe the line for toe the line as Muslims and how we are supposed to live. But we also have different aspects of our lives. A lot of us are professionals. We've done business. We go out there every day to carry out our daily activities, to do a few things, to be able to feed our families, protect our words, to provide for our children, for those of us who have kids. So we all have to do that while also remembering that we are Muslims. So this is a very interesting session. It's faith and leadership and shaping leaders with Islamic values and ethics. We'll dive into quite a few things as we go on, but to start, and we'll start with, and please also, if there's a specific way you'd like to be addressed, as Mr. Mrs. Alaji, however, you want a brother or sister, if there's a specific way you want me to address you, I'm very always concerned about that. Please let me know. But we'll start with Sister Toyin Kekere. Please tell us who you are, what you do, and a bit about your journey in about 3 minutes. And thank you all for accepting to be on this panel. So please unmute Sister Toyin Kekere, because you are muted. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bola. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And Ramadan Mubarak to everyone. Let me see. 3 minutes. Okay. So I'm Toyin Kekere Karimat. I mean, he asked about Muslim names. So I go by Toyin. I've been working now since 1999. I currently work at Lotus Financial Services. I'm CEO of Lotus Financial Services. But how did I start my journey? I started out in a conventional bank, right? One of the best banks, in Nigeria at the time, even now. Yeah. So, I started out in a conventional bank, learning about financial services and all of that. I was there for about 7 years. But even at the time, I had already started thinking about non-interest finance, right? So back then, even though I was working in a bank, I never used to collect interest. And even when I received it, I returned it or I gave it out, rather I gave it out as charity and things like that. And then later, I got to, work in the first non-interest finance in the country. And that began my journey into moving out of the conventional finance space. But not everybody has but I used to do Jumat. But when I started working in Lotus Capital, that was the first time I was there was a small prayer room. So we had, for the first time, I had the opportunity to say Zuri and Asri. And guess what? I was not even inclined at the time. I was like, it's there. Okay, well, it's there. I'll just combine. But I was like, it's there, use it, and I started using it. I was there initially for a short while before going back now, but I was there for a short while, and then I moved on to non-interest, a non-finance institution, my journey and all of that. Once again, had to find a small prayer room to pray, and Akeem is here. I know when we worked together I don't understand. We had to find a small prayer room as well to pray, to assume and all that. And I realized that no matter where I've worked, except now, we're always the minority. And because you're the minority, you're the one that when you get there, to have to create the small prayer room to go and pray and all of that. During fasting, you have to ensure that your work is still up to speed. No matter what, there's no tiredness or anything like you still have to perform and all of that. And I also realized that the discipline the discipline growing up, and developing my career, I realized that the discipline of Ibaadah sets you up actually to be a professional. Is it waking up for Fajr at 5 a.m. that won't make you be disciplined at work? Is it getting home from a wedding and having to pray while your non-Muslim friends are going to sleep? That makes you disciplined. Is it staying for how many rakas of Tarawih that doesn't make you patient and disciplined? And that is what you need as a leader. So I think there's a mirror, there's there's a mirroring, effect between Ibaadah leadership and being a professional. But anyway, so my journey has been about over 25 years or so. I've worked in non-conventional, I've worked in conventional, Islamic institutions, and I realized you just have to create your own way. You have to mean what you say because your integrity is key, and you have to be disciplined. You can't say, because it's time to pray, therefore I'll pray for 30 minutes. No, sharply I come back to the office because guess what? They are paying you. So you have to be disciplined. So I'll stop there. I'm sure I've used 3 minutes, but that's just
I wanted to
my
add
journey.
one more. You have questions 1 and 1A. Just to add so that everyone can, when they do theirs subsequently, can you point on one thing that shaped you as a Muslim that's also a professional? One thing, if you just think of one thing that can come to your head, it can be just one word or a sentence.
Integrity. Integrity, that's trust, meaning what you say, saying what you mean, acting, when you talk the talk and act the walk, everything, and accountability. Yes,
that
integrity.
You can point to, that integrity was tested, that you can point us to. Was there an event, a scenario, an action, or something that integrity that you mentioned that you can draw from? Okay, this happened, and it really shaped me as a professional.
Okay. There are different things. So, for example, even something as simple as you're working remotely, there's no one there to check, but you make sure that you're doing your job. The same way you are living alone, there's no one there to check if you're praying. So, you cannot pray if you like, or you can secretly eat when fasting. Do you understand? But so it's the same thing. You're working remotely and you can not on TV. Do you understand? That's just a little, to bringing it home to what we do these days. Do you understand? For now, yes. So I don't want to go into, how we have been doing the financing. Okay, there is one thing. There was a time that we received some fees that we had to turn back because it did not match, our values. We had to turn it back. And there have been transactions that have come to our laps that we've had to turn back on, because they're not in line with Islamic finance. And, I think that is because, who doesn't want to increase their bottom line, and there have been situations where you've had to reject some things because it's not in line with your ethics. So, there's so many of them. There's so many I don't want to give examples of, but yeah, so that's along the line.
Well, we'll probably touch on it in a bit later. But thank you so much. Thanks for joining the experience. So I'll go to my next person on the list. Brother Olagoke Lawal, but we're not related. again, just tell us in 3 minutes your journey as a professional or a business person that happens to, or a Muslim that happens to be a business person and professional. Just give us your journey real quick. And then if there's one thing, one scenario, one activity, one insight, something, if there's one thing that you could say that shaped you, maybe has led to your success, maybe has led to you being a lot more conscious the way you are now, if that's who you are. If it's just one thing that shaped you, if you can just, finish up with that as well. Brother Olagoke Lawal, thank you.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. My brother Bola, it's a pleasure to meet you and it's a pleasure to be on this panel. My name is Abdulsamir Muhammad Al-Awwal, well known as Olagoke Lawal. I would perhaps stop where my respected sister, Sister Toyin Kekere, stopped. I'm a finance professional, a chartered accountant, and by the mercy and nehma of Allah, I've been opportune to work for some of the leading financial services organization in the UK. All my professional life has been spent in the UK, from Barclays to HSBC. Started my career back in the day with Tesco PLC in the corporate finance department. So I've been in finance and non-financial industry. As an accountant, as you know, as a finance professional, there is an expectation and a requirement that you must be on top of your numbers. So those expectation is even more heightened as a Muslim, because on the day when Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to act and hold you accountable, you must know that to do the right thing is not optional for you. What has shaped me as a Muslim or as a Muslim throughout my career, I think my sister mentioned integrity, number one. Number two is the amana, to understand that being in a position job is not just an option. It's a responsibility that Allah bestowed on the people that He favors. And with those opportunity comes responsibility and accountability. And Allah Azza wa Jal said in Surah An-Nisa, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمر أن تعودوا للأمانات إلى أهل وإذا أقمت بين الناس أن تحكموا بالعدل إن الله نعم يعظكم به إن الله كان سميعا بصيرا. Meaning, indeed, Allah has commanded you to return the trust to the rightful owners. And when you judge between two people, you should make sure you do that with fairness. And that is the command from your Lord. Surely Allah is Samihan Basiro, clearly the whole hearing and whole seeing. So it goes without saying that the position of trust, or as a Muslim, working in a professional setting, is an amana. But even to add to that, you're occupying a leadership position is an amana that you're holding on behalf of Allah Azza wa Jal, and that you would be held accountable for on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. So as you work in a professional setting, you must be conscious and mindful that you are an ambassador of Islam in your utterances, in your mannerism, and in the way you carry yourself. And wallahi, one of the greatest legacies of leadership is less about what you do but more about what people benefit from it even when you're gone. What do I mean by that? As a Muslim professional or a leader, you've walked into an organization with your mannerism or the way you carry yourself, you are leaving a legacy or a trace behind. And that trace would be held not only against you or for you, but other people will be held to that same standard that will come after you. So if you are supposed to have 1 hour break, for example, let it be 1 hour. If you have to resume at your job at a particular time, be there, be prompt. That's what Muslim is about. It's about excellence. That's the requirement of Allah Azza wa Jal. Muslims in profession, we are not mediocres. We strive for excellence in everything we do, and we deliver it spiritually, mentally, physically. We are known for excellence, and that is a trait that must be left, that must be carried through. And when you are in that mindset, when you are representing the deen, when you are being an ambassador of Islam in an organization where Muslims are in the minority, you must be conscious of it. You must be conscious of it, not just for yourself, not just for the people that are going to come behind you, but because you're going to be held accountable for every opportunity and those the trust that's been left with you. I'll stop there for now. I'm sure we would explore more as the program goes forward. But I hope that covers your question. I think you're muted, Bola.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your submission. That was quite insightful. Thank you very much. So we're gonna go to Sister Maryam. Sister Maryam, I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm Yoruba, but sometimes some names are I don't like distorting people's names. So Sister Maryam, please tell us your name, your full name, and then your journey, and as a Muslim and in whatever profession you've done, your journey, and then if there's one thing that shaped who you are along that journey. There are a lot of things that we all will experience and things that we'll see. So if there's one thing that shaped it, please share with us.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much, Mr. Bola. I'd like to stand on all existing protocols. Ramadan Mubarak to all my Muslim brothers and sisters. So the name is Maryam Onikijipa Belgore. A few things about myself. I'm the founder of Maryam Onikijipa Belgore Foundation, a non-governmental organization, a non-profit organization founded to empower all women, especially women, through building a community so strong, a community of happy, fulfilled women through empowerment and advocacy. I am also the creative director of Maribel Limited. In Maribel Limited, we're into real estate, event, and fashion styling. I have had so many things that have shaped me in my journey as a career woman, as a philanthropist, as a wife and a mother. But if there's one that resonates with me, is compassion. Islam is a religion of compassion. You cannot be a Muslim and not know about Rahmah. You have to be nurturing and kind and empathic towards all and sundry. So in my years of working either in my humanitarian services or in my own place of work or at home as a mom or in the family as a sister or as a daughter or as a wife, one thing that has struck for me, that has stood out for me is compassion at every point in time. Our prophet, who is our exemplary guide, the role model, the ultimate role model for us all, is known worldwide. It's a known fact that is the most compassionate. So kindness, empathy, nurturing, nourishing has been one thing that stood out for me in my career pattern as a Muslim. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your submission. I think we have the um, Brother Akeem Oyewale next. So if you don't mind, please unmute and just tell us about your journey as a Muslim who happens to be a professional in business, and share if there's one thing that shaped you along that journey. So I felt like we should start with everyone's journey, what they do and everyone's journey, because I'm sure there are also people in the audience that maybe have gone through the same thing, walked through the same path, maybe are in the same line of business, work. Some people might be in, they might run an NGO like Sister Maryam. So one of the things we want to accomplish is that we want everybody to know that there are a lot of people like us out there, the people that we can learn from, people that have gone through different journeys. Maybe all of us are trying to get to the same path, and we work through different paths to get there. We're trying to get to the same destination, sorry, but we work through different paths to get there. But our underlying basis that we are all Muslims, and there are things that we need to do and are there as Muslims. So this session, we wanted to do something unconventional because typically with Ramadan lecture, we'll have someone come teach us or lecture. But we wanted something more contextual, bring four distinct people with a moderator, which alhamdulillah I am today, by the grace of God. And then we just have people just talk about their journeys, talk about the different things, components of what it means to be a Muslim, but also a business professional, the challenges, things that we've not have to navigate. The very easy one is in finance, for example. A lot of people find themselves working in organizations that maybe not be fully Sharia compliant, but there's the element with, okay, what do I do? You know, so we just wanted to have contextual conversations. There's still the issue of having even enough of us to be in positions so that, you know, there's this big issue about poverty in poverty and Islam and things like that. So we wanted to have more of a contextual conversation. That's why we have a panel style. So Brother Akeem Oyewale, please can you come up, unmute and just tell us about your journey and one thing that shaped you through that journey. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thanks so much, everyone, and Dr. Adeduntan for giving us this platform. Okay, I am Akeem Oyewale. I started off my education, University of Lagos, myself and Toyin. We were there in accounting together, accounting department. I have my MBA at Manchester Business School, and I have my PhD. And I'm also a professional in the capital markets. I'm a stockbroker and also a chartered banker and a chartered accountant. I've worked all my life largely in the financial space for about 22 years at Standard Bank and Stanbic IBTC, especially the capital markets role, still in the university, you know, and that is the need to be proud to be called a Muslim. You know, I recall when we were in school, whether year 1 or year 2, university, and we had a very strong lecturer, I would call, you know, in finance at the time, and he tried to fix a lecture for us, and there was no other time except 1 to 3 p.m. just bang, and Juma was bang in the middle, you know, and we couldn't change the timeline, and the man was also a bit strict, but I found the courage and I walked up to him that, you know what, I need to go for Juma prayers, you know, and he said, oh, really? Okay, yeah, so when it is 20 minutes to let me know, and I will allow you to leave my class. You know, it was a very strict lecturer, but so from then, that day kept calling me Muslimi Ododo and all of that. And what I realized the first time I left the class, you know, as I was leaving, about 2 or 3 more persons just followed me, and the man was making fun of them. Oh, so you are also Muslims? And why were you not bold enough to say so initially? But that was how it went all through my stay in school. But that struck a chord in me, even when I started work, just like Toyin said. One of the most important things I try to do is to ensure there is a prayer room wherever you pray, no matter how inconvenient. And as you get to be able to make it a lot more comfortable, you try to do that, but you must be bold to do that, especially where you're working, where you have, where you're in the minority, especially the Muslims in the southern part of Nigeria, most places. That's one point. The second point is you have to always be conscious of the fact that you are being benchmarked, you are being watched, not only in terms of your professional capacity, but because you profess to be a Muslim. People expect you, like Sister Maryam said, people expect you that you are following the dictate of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that you have to do the right things. He's Ameen, so he's a trustworthy guy. Is also the most efficient person, and we Muslims are proud. So if you are working in an organization, in a unit, and you do not perform well, then there's a problem. Not only are they going to rate you as being an inefficient person, but you'll also be tainting the name of Islam. So those things are usually some things that push me to just go the extra mile, even when it's not easy, like during Ramadan and the like. You just have to push on, because you have to realize that there's that sign that says a Muslim was here, and you must make sure that that sign is written in gold each time you leave a place. People must always remember you for who you are, what you stood for: integrity, efficiency, and just being just, And I think the other thing about Islam also is that you realize that you cannot do everything. Sometimes you fall short. I mean, we are told in the Quran, Almighty Allah is Ghafur Rahim. So each time you make mistakes, be bold enough to own up. You are not created perfect, so don't assume perfection, but just strive to be the best in what you do. I would like to stop there. But before I stop, there is one thing that has also molded me, and this I got when I started work at Stanbic, and that is the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers in South Africa. Anybody that knows South Africa knows that Muslims are in very, very small minority, but the impact of Islam is felt strongly in Islam. And one of the organizations that allow it to be felt is the TAAMAL, the Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers. Any organization, any company worth its salt that needs the best of accountants, the best of lawyers, they strategically try to get someone that is a member of TAAMAL. Now, that to me, when I got to know that, at an early phase of my career, I mean, it just struck a chord in me. Hey, come on. If these people, as small as they are, less than 5%, are able to make a mark that people are always looking for the best accountants from the Muslims in South Africa, we should have the same, or even if we don't have the same, you should be an example of a similar position in Nigeria and wherever you are. So TAAMAL, I mean, whether they know it or they don't know, they've been a sort of inspiration to someone like myself, trying to ensure that wherever we have Muslims, you mentor them, you ensure you do the right things, and you deliver, over and above expectations. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Brother Akeem. Thank you. You said quite a lot, and I really appreciate your thoughts on all of this. Thank you so much. So before we had the session, obviously we did put some questions together to kind of prep everyone. I'm a bit of an unconventional person, so I'm sure that's not what we're expecting. So we'll follow the script a bit now. And I just want to go into the leadership thing. I think someone mentioned Amana earlier. But I want to throw this from a responsibility standpoint as a leader, a Muslim who happens to be a leader in business. And I'll start with, I'll go back to Sister Toyin, Kekere Ekun. What sort of responsibility do you feel as a Muslim who's in business, who's a leader, or assume that we all here have accepted the responsibility as leaders here? If you don't, it's okay for everyone to just say, no, I don't see myself as a leader. But let's take the assumption that we all here have taken the responsibility as leaders. We are Muslims, we are in business, we are leaders. We are leaders. How would you even describe leadership in Islam? And how do you hold yourself accountable, knowing that you have a responsibility as a leader, but as a leader who's a Muslim? How do you hold yourself accountable? But start with, how do you even define leadership in Islam? If you were to say, just based off of your life philosophy or just the way you think about it, how would you coin it? Because we've probably done different things that's conventional, and we've been to leadership courses or anything. Now we are in the context of Islam and in business. How would you even frame leadership? So let's start with Sister Toyin again.
Thank you very much for that.
Toyin there.
So leadership is okay. Okay, so leadership is basically role modeling, really. It's about role modeling, making sure that you behave in a certain way, right? And if you choose that, okay, so you are Muslim and you are a professional, so behaving within the principles of Islam and marrying that with the principles of being a professional, right? And I said earlier that there's a mirror relationship between being a Muslim leader and also a leader in the workplace. So being a Muslim leader, the first thing, like I mentioned, is being trustworthy, right? I mean, I think one of the things that Allah did is that for the first 40 years of the Prophet's life, he established the fact that he was trustworthy. And, like my brother said, he was called the Ameen. Why was that? I believe that in his wisdom, it was to ensure that somebody you have been calling the Ameen, when he comes up with a message for you, you have no reason to believe that it's a lie. He cannot suddenly become a liar. So that was what he was trying to establish. So mirroring that, right? You have to be trustworthy. You have to be reliable. You have to be dependable, right? As a Muslim, bringing that to your workplace, the same thing. You have to be reliable. You have to be dependable. If you are given a role, whether it's finance, whether it's operations, whether it's marketing, whether it's treasury, right? Whatever role you are given, you have to make sure you do it with integrity, with discipline. You have to do it the right way because you have a contract. You have a contract with your employer to perform a certain role, and you're going to get paid for it for your hours. So it's the same thing, right? Also, there has to be justice and fairness. Justice and fairness.
Can I ask a follow-up? Sorry, can I ask a follow-up before you go
Go
further?
ahead, please.
So you have a
All right.
you have a contract with your employer, but as a Muslim, do you also maybe have double contracts? That I have a contract with an employer, but also have a contract as a Muslim to carry out my functions and my deeds because I am a Muslim as well, or
Exactly. Exactly, you are correct, which is why I'm trying to mirror both. You have, so for example, what are the things, because Islam is quite easy, really, and the 5 pillars, as long as you can follow them, you can interact, you can exist in a normal professional world. The only things are maybe what we mentioned earlier, the prayer times are very specific, right? And if you don't want to pile them up and then when you get home, you now take them, it's when you pray everything. You have to find a way to put them. So for example, even when I'm setting meetings, I have, the time in my head. When do we set a meeting? If you have a long meeting, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's take a 15-minute break. Those that are Muslims, you go and pray, come back. And what I said about role modeling is that you don't just say, because I've been given the privilege of having a prayer room, therefore I can say all the naflas in the world. No, you pray sharply, you come back, and then you resume your duties. So as well as, and being just and fair as well. You can't be biased. You can't be, you can't show favoritism. You have to be objective, in establishing your duties. You also have to be disciplined, right? And like I said earlier, the way the religion is structured, in such a way, you have to do specific things in a certain way. It helps you hone in yourself as a disciplined professional, get to work on time. Of course, you get to work on time because you're already trained with being, saying your prayers in the early hours of the appointed time. So you're used to that. So get to work on time. You have to show competence. You have to build your knowledge because whoever you're working with expects that you're going to be competent. The same thing about your religion. You have to learn about your religion. Ignorance is not an excuse. So there's a mirroring between both of them. And leadership is not necessarily the highest person in the job. Leadership is about how you carry yourself, right? How you see yourself, how disciplined you are. You have 15-year-olds that display such leadership quality, and you're like, my God, such potential. And why do you have that? Because of, very early on, their discipline, their mates are maybe playing Game Boy and all that. No, but they are, they're reading, they're studying, they're trying to find out what's the world about, what is good, what is bad. Another thing I'll say though is also to be tolerant. As leaders, we have to be tolerant because Professor Hassan was also tolerant. In fact, he was very tolerant because he was very conscious about showing good example. And like my brother said earlier, showing good example is so important because you might have people that are flirting with the faith. I call it flirting with the faith, because I heard something nice. Flirting with the faith to maybe thinking of converting. But if you behave a certain way, they're like, is that what it's about? I'm not interested. So you have like double responsibility. You have the responsibility of being a manager. You have the responsibility of being a Muslim. You have to combine it and hopefully stand out. Stand out as a Muslim, stand out as a professional, stand out as a leader with those qualities that I mentioned. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. Does anybody want to talk about the leadership question, or should I move on to something else so someone else can?
I'll just add.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I will just add two more qualities of a leader. Toyin has mentioned the fact that, the weight of responsibility for you, what you are doing, people are watching you, and you can help those that are flirting with the faith. Because if you decide to disappoint them, you may think you are just doing whatever you like, but one or two persons may drop off. Oh, if that's how Muslims are, then I'd rather move away. Or, oh yeah, I would like the way the guy did, and I'll continue to be a Muslim. So whether you like it or not, by your actions, you're actually carrying out dawah. So we need to understand that, and as a leader, if you're a leader that people see, they trust, and they believe in, by what you do, you're actually carrying out dawah. So we have to be mindful of that at all times. The second point I wanted to mention is you have to exude confidence. Confidence is important in stormy weathers, in challenging times. You must be able to let your subordinates or your colleagues know that you know what you're doing. And this is in line with what most of our prophets have done. Prophet Musa, for example, alayhi salatu wasalam. When he was being chased out of Egypt and the like, his people already gave up on him. So we are being chased by the Pharaoh and his people. You have a deep ocean in front of us. How do we move? But he was confident in the fact that his Lord had asked him to go ahead and take his people across. And you can only achieve that level of confidence if you built up yourself as a Muslim. So your colleagues will always trust you. When you tell them you are going ahead, they know you are going ahead and they can always follow you. So that's confidence and that ability to realize that whatever you are doing, small, big, you're actually acting out a dawah script. You are either calling people to the faith or you are chasing them away from the faith because people are really watching you. So I just wanted to chip in with those two qualities that I think you have to exhibit as a leader. Thank you very much. Sorry, Sister Maryam, you want to continue?
Yeah, thank you so much, my brother. So I just want to add one or two things to what our sister Toyin has spoken about. So there are some factors that I feel like guide us as Muslims at every point in time. First of all, we know Islam is a way of life, it's a comprehensive way of life. It entails everything that we do, encompasses the spirit, not just the spiritual aspect, but our normal day-to-day lifestyle, our habits, things that we incorporate on a daily, social norms and moral values. For me, there are three things that I always tell people if I am in a gathering where I'm to mentor people or teach them about leadership or things that guide me in my own personal space. I call them the three T's: Tawhid, Taqwa, and Tawakkul. These three values, I believe if every Muslim can have it, would shape or would be like a foundation, towards your character. It will build your character, foundation towards building your character through the moral principles and values that Sister Toyin has spoken about. So these three things, the Tawhid, if we start with that, what is Tawhid? Tawhid is oneness, the uniqueness of Allah, understanding that Allah is sovereign over all things. When you understand this basic principle of Allah being sovereign, being the ultimate authority and power over everything, and then you then proceed to having taqwa, the fear of Him, when you know that Allah is the one that is sovereign, He has ultimate power, ultimate wisdom, ultimate authority over all things, and then you now fear Him for how mighty He is. When I think about taqwa, when I'm telling my children about taqwa, I tell them it's a consciousness and awareness of the presence of your Creator. Because, let's take, for instance, in the home space now, let's say at home, you have laid down rules. When you're not there, the kids can as well not follow those rules. But when you're there in their presence, there's the way they act. So when we are aware of the presence of God in our midst, it helps us, it guides us to acting right. We shouldn't see the concept of Allah as something we cannot see. We cannot see Allah, but we have to be at all times be reminded of His presence. Is here, is around us. He can hear and see all that we do. When you have perfected this act of taqwa, then you further go down to tawakkul. Tawakkul is the trust, the reliance, total reliance upon Allah, knowing that as a leader in Islam, there is no power, there's no might, there's nothing that you can do except Allah wills. And this helps you to understand that you have a purpose and a journey. Your assignment is to serve, to fulfill the will of Allah, and to manifest His decree upon His creations. A leader must have all these three T's that I call them. These are values that will then now shape you, lay the foundation for every other moral principle Islam has brought forward, like the ones that Sister Toyin has mentioned. Thank you.
Very much. I'm so into all of the conversation that I can listen to all of you talk all day. I just forget that I'm the moderator. This is really, really good. But I want to shift gears real quick. This might be a little bit of, I know we've got along. I like conflict is good in my own opinion. So a lot of us get into a situation, maybe some of us might be on different parts of the conversation. So I want to talk about ethical leadership in high stakes environments. When I work in government, people have done they've been served in different capacities. So I just wanted to touch it. I want to now add, and I know we are all humans, but we are Muslims. What is the temptation of greater good? For the greater good, let me just do it this way because people will benefit from it. All right, there's poverty going on. If I do this thing, then I'm able to fund people to go to school. Maybe it may not necessarily follow Sharia, but for the greater good, it makes sense or logic. So I want to throw this to wait, I'm make sure I'm not missing any panelists. 1 second. I think I've covered everyone. But let's go back to Brother Olagoke, because I think you didn't speak last time. I think you were chomping the bit to speak on this one. So I know you're in financial services, but I think you now work in Islamic finance. but I think you did also mention that before Islamic finance, you worked in conventional finance. Take off your experience. Ethical. Has there been the temptation for the greater good, even if you feel like it's not Sharia? And we are all honest here, nobody's judging. Only Allah judges. But we are here to learn, and we are here to see journeys, because it's very, very important that we tell people our journey, because, and also not paint an unrealistic picture that, oh, everything's just going to fall in line with your beliefs, and you're not going to have difficult decisions to make. And if it's not, you're just going to walk away. It's going to be that easy. I want us to get into when you've had to make, the distinction, when you have to take tough decisions, when you've had to walk away, when you have to put your foot down, or when you have to make a decision based on the greater good. So ethical leadership, also being Muslim. So, Brother Olagoke Lawal, please, I'm expecting fire from you. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to put into perspective. Your question is around balancing integrity with pressure in the corporate space and financial target. First and foremost, I think it has to be said that doing good and being on the straight path, Idina Sirat al-Mustaqim, are not usually mutually exclusive. For me, it's all about understanding what those targets are, what are the pressure points, and in most cases, just have clarity about what they are. And then ask yourself the next question. What are my expectations on this? Vis-a-vis your mindset to leadership. One of the things, the qualities of a leader were exhaustively covered earlier. But leadership in itself isn't the end, is a means to an end, i.e., is an opportunity to do greater goods. So if you understand that and you put that into perspective, then you must understand then that the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-halali bayyina wal-haramu bayyina wa ma baynahuma humuhu mutashabbiha. What's permissible, or the permissibility in Islam, is glaring. It's not contested. What's forbidden is non-contested. Sometimes there's a gray area. There's a mutashabihat. That mutashabihat sometimes is what you should then sit up and say, you know what, there is a gray area here. I have a transaction. I'm unsure whether going ahead with this transaction would challenge my faith, would push me away from my belief in Allah. Then what do? Practical advice that I always do as a Muslim throughout my over 20-year journey is, and I will encourage every leader to do this as a Muslim, always ensure you're in a state of wudu. In meetings, in anywhere you are. Because being in a state of wudu, consciously or unconsciously, means you are in constant state of worship. That's number one. Number two, what I've done, what I've found useful is when you are in that state of mutashabihat, you're unsure, but you're certainly in the state of wudu. Every simple opportunity I have, I'm doing my 2 nawafil, seeking guidance from Allah. I've just popped out to that meeting room. You don't know what I'm doing. I've done my nawafil and I'm back at my desk trying to make a decision. You're seeking that guidance from Allah whilst you're making those decisions. Number three is coming back and understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as said by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, which is that kullukum rahi wa kullukum mas'ul an rahiyati. Every one of us were shepherds, and we're going to be accountable for our flocks. So that transaction that you think, okay, is pressured, I'm being pushed to perhaps signing off something that is unethical. At the back of your mind, you must then understand the real purpose. Is your purpose because you want to self-serve and you want to have this transaction for what I call instant gratification, i.e., the gratification of this world at the expense of the akhirah, the hereafter? Wallahi, tallahi, summa billahi. There's no amount of money, no amount of position, no amount of accolade you have that is worth sacrificing your akhirah for. If you understand this and you put this into perspective and you seek Allah's guidance to help you perfect this and almost embody it in your day-to-day life, then the decision making, when you get into that mutashabihat, becomes a lot more easy or becomes easier because guidance continues to come from Allah Azza wa Jalla. The next is when you are making those calls or those decisions within the four walls of the office, you know that Allah is Sami'an Basira. Allah sees you. You can hide the books. You can see that. And with the unethical behaviors going on in the world at the moment, the problem is really not lack of policy. Some of the biggest banks that you have or biggest organizations in the world have huge, voluminous policy on ethics and code of ethics. But yet, there are scandals every single day. Just name it. Name the big organizations in the world. The question to yourself then is not about the policy. It's about the implementation. But you cannot divorce the implementation from the person that's implementing it. And here is why the differentiation between Muslims and non-Muslims. Wallahi, for the non-Muslim, this world is it. They enjoy and they enjoy and they enjoy. For Muslims, we are striving and thriving for a bigger cause, for the akhirah. And having that in perspective, asking yourself that question, that do I compromise on this particular transaction because I want to get that promotion? Wallahi, when death comes, would that matter? When you're standing in the front of Allah, would that matter? And remember, Allah Azza wa Jalla said in the Quran, فَمَنْ يَحْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَحْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى. Whatever you think you're doing, whatever decision, transactions you're engaging in, no matter how big, how small, truly you'll be made to account for it. Even if it's as small as an atom weight of good deed, you'll be of bad deed, you'll be made to account for it. And conversely, if you do good and you think no one is seeing you, Allah Azza wa Jal sees and understands what you're doing and where you're doing it. Just to wrap up on this, sometimes you're right, there are mutashabihat. There are instances, real life instances, where as a Muslim in a corporate world, particularly living in the West, opportunities are baked, discussed, finalized in a pub, in an environment where alcohol is the order of the day. We understand the impermissibility of being around that. What Allah says, not only of someone that's drinking alcohol, but the people around it. So your question to yourself is, do I then sacrifice my deen because I want to pursue this promotion and be part of them. But you have to remember, Allahumma malika li-mulk, tu'ti li-malika ma tasha. Power is only given by Allah and Allah alone. And whatever you think you're going to compromise on, Allah Azza wa
Can I add
Go
quickly?
ahead.
So is it a black and white situation for you? I know you said there's some gray areas, or maybe, I'm not sure if it was you that said it earlier about some gray areas, but in most areas, is it a black and white? You follow the deen, you follow Sharia, that's it. Or and you know, if you go against that, then you are judged. Or do we allow people do what they feel is best at their own position, and then we leave the judging for the Almighty Allah? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think, as you know, Islam is a complete religion, and Allah Azza wa Jal did not leave us without guidance, without lead. He has sent the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as the Imam of the Muslim to legislate and to tell us what and how to live our lives. You're right, there is a mutashabihat. You could fall into some gray areas, but it goes back to understanding your essence, understanding why am I in this world? What am I doing? Does all of this matter in the next? If I was to drop dead now, does this matter? Would I be willing, ready to meet my Lord? Answering this question. Yes, there's an opportunity being discussed at the pub where alcohol is being served. What if the angel of death comes and pick you there? Would you be happy with that to meet your Lord there? What I advise is Muslims are not antisocial. We are social. We should take leadership when it comes to social. We should lead. We should create platforms where Muslims can feel and behave and feel at home, where they can socialize. If truly there's an opportunity, or there's someone that you truly want to network with and you want to be in their good, take the lead. Organize the meeting. Take the meeting in a place where it's halal. Because Islam is not what you pick and choose from. It's a complete religion. But Allah Azza wa Jalla understands and sees you. Now, you mentioned the word judging. Wallahi, tallahi, summa billahi. It's only human being that judges another man. You know, Allah judges you by the quality of your repentance. You can see the difference. Even if you fall short or you fell short, Allah is so far ahead of human being, even in the way He relates with us. You do something today, human being will hold it against you for the rest of your life. Rather, Allah is looking at you and say, let me see, is he going to repent? Is he going to esteem to repent, to repentance? And that's what Allah is going to judge you about. Wallahi, when you, in the Quran, when you do something good, Allah rewards you multiple-fold. But when you do something bad, Allah hold your account just for that. Look at the mercy of Allah. Let me say it again. When you do something good, Allah multiplies it for you. But when you do something bad, Allah punishes you or just hold your account just for that. I'm not trying to trivialize sinning against Allah or going against the will of Allah. Allah is shadid al-iqab. Allah is truly severe in punishment. But Allah is inna Allah ghafurur rahim. Allah is oft forgiving and the most merciful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know you took your time, but I think we all appreciate it. This is a very good submission. I am trying to make sure that everybody has equal speaking positions here. Sister Maryam, do you want to add anything to this, or should I ask you your own question?
You can go ahead.
Because
a lot has been said by Lawal, Olagoke, so
I'll ask you your own question. So, and I know I've seen a few videos of you and has touched around this particular question I want to ask you from an individual standpoint. So just spiritual discipline as a foundation for leadership. The connection between the leaders, personal Ibaadah, how you carry yourself as someone, as an individual, and their effectiveness in leadership. I know you mentioned the foundation, you've mentioned real estate that you're involved in, and some other things you're involved in. So contextually, if you take those entities or those organizations where you work at or you flourish at, and now take you as an individual and your personal Ibaadah and the things that you do, all of the pillars of Islam you follow, and you as much as you can, or as much as you do, can to help us draw a line to how it has made you effective in your organization.
I think I'll approach that question from the angle of challenges that we face when we want to do things, or when we are embarking on projects or journeys or tasks, or when you are leading a pack, your team members, to achieving a goal. One thing that has struck for me is my faith. You know, faith is a core value, a crucial concept that emphasizes the role and importance of Islamic leaders. So at every point in time, a leader that has faith has absolute belief and conviction in Allah, thereby believing in themselves, their principles, and their guides. So at every point in time, you know, when you're running a business, we all know how it is. There are times when you just hit the wall and you're wondering, where do I turn to? What do I do? How do I navigate this? You know, but if you have built your faith, if you have built your faith in Allah, faith allows you to foster resilience, hope, and the ability to navigate through uncertainty. As I said earlier, I said Tawheed, knowing that Allah is one, is sovereign. Tawakkul, taqwa, the fear of Allah, knowing that He's the only one that can actually solve a problem for you. You know, that's tawakkul, reliance upon Him. When you are able to understand the concept of relying totally on Allah, you then start to build your faith. When we speak of faith in leadership or in our areas of businesses, we often refer to the conviction, majorly inward. You have to actually build the inward. It's like an assignment, like yoga, like something you do continuously every now and then until you perfect the act that guides your decision making and actions. Our faith can manifest in different forms. It can manifest in the way we see our Creator, in the values we see in ourselves, the mission of our task or project, or the faith that we have in the potentials of our team members. So when you build your faith as a Muslim, of this situation, when you hold on to that faith, it helps you to move mountains. It's fundamental. You have to know that no matter how dire or extreme the situation might be, there is always a way out of it. So I use the faith that I've built through my religious values, through my spirituality, to actually lead my day-to-day lifestyle in my business, in the humanitarian services. I tell you that there are times when people come to us in the foundation with requests that seem, so my foundation is actually self-sponsored, except for few family members and friends that want to actually put in their little to support the cause. So there are times when we get requests, take for instance, a medical request of millions. And then you're looking at the foundation's account and you're thinking to yourself, how am I supposed to solve this problem, Ya Allah? And I believe that you have put me on this path to actually ease the burden of these people. I am, you know, at every point in time when God makes you a leader, He has given you an assignment. He has bestowed upon you a task, a mission that you must fulfill, and you will deliver to Him. So I go back to Him and say, Allah, how do I navigate this? How do I solve this problem that you have brought to my doorstep? I don't have any solution at hand. But because I have faith in you, I have total reliance in you, total reliance in your guidance and support, I know you will find a way. You will make a way out of this for me, for this individual that has come to our doorstep. And you know, the beautiful thing is, before we know what's going on, Allah makes a way always, but it doesn't just do it. It's because you have the faith and the conviction that He will do it. So faith has been really major in in all the things that I've done in my years of work experience, in my businesses, motherhood, life, everything. And if I apply it to all of it, it gives me courage. It's a virtue that every leader must have. It makes you brave and steadfast in the face of adversity and challenges. You know, our prophet is a bold leader. He was very assertive. He was very, very certain in the belief that he had in God. And we just try to follow that path. So for me, that's one thing that has actually stood out. Standing up for justice and protecting the community at all time with the faith that I've built over time through spirituality.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move on. Thank you so much. This was quite insightful. I've enjoyed all the responses, all the comments, submissions so far.
Thank you.
I'm going to move on to Q&A, but just for the sake of anyone on the panel that just wanted to throw in like 1 minute response or comments to what they've heard before I go into the Q&A, I want to just give that opportunity. Does anyone want to quickly 1 minute? If not, I'll go into the Q&A. That's quite some interesting questions there. They don't follow the same pattern. The questions are interesting. So I can go to the question. Okay. Brother Akeem wants to talk. Brother Akeem, please go ahead.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Thank you very much. I wanted to mention the fact that even though a lot of us are leaders, we must not do away with the fact that mentorship is also very important. You know, so even if you're a leader and you have experiences, whenever you are in a challenging situation, especially something of an ethical nature, you know, you should have those mentors, those people that have seen everything, that have gone through your path, and be confident enough, be subservient enough, be humble enough to approach them for guidance. You know, especially those that are a lot more richer in knowledge from an Islamic perspective, experience perspective, you know, and reach out to them to just guide you. You know, sometimes when you bounce off issues with people, you get a larger array of opportunities and decisions that you can decide to take on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. While I'm trying to, okay, Dr. Adeduntan said he'll talk at the end, but I was wondering, maybe as you were saying a lot of this, maybe there's anything that struck Dr. Adeduntan that maybe we just want to comment on. If not, I'm going to go to the Q&A.
Okay, I mean, for me, I think there are a couple of themes that have been very recurring, and I kept hearing about role modeling for us as Muslim leaders, why we should live our life in such ways and manner that it exemplifies what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam want us to do, such that we're serving, in fact, we are doing dawah without necessarily mounting the pulpit. So role modeling is very important. I heard about empathy. I heard about excellence. I heard about integrity. I heard about being courageous. I believe Akeem was the one that mentioned it, that sometimes we find ourselves in settings where we need to break the pack. And it reminded me of a very interesting setting just about 4 years ago. We went for this global CEO program, and myself and the current GMD of NNPC were the only two Muslims, at least from sub-Saharan Africa, that were on that small team. And we just had to find a way within that program to do our salat in congregation, the two of us. And I think it just speaks to the point that Akeem made, that we'll find ourselves in situations where we just need to demonstrate courage and ensure that we serve as example. When somebody spoke about pace setting, we mustn't shy away from somebody leading and ensuring that we serve as good example to others. I believe the example by Akeem again about AMAL, that's Association of Muslim Accountants and Lawyers in South Africa, is something that we should think about in terms of teaming and just building a team of professionals that can basically help us push in the right direction. But I think those key themes are very important, and they should be part of what we should be pushing as a team. Thank you. Let's go on to Q&A there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adeduntan. So Q&A, I don't even know where to start from because I just saw some that are quite tempting for me to pick on. So I'm going to start with one. Assalamu alaikum. Could you share insights on meritocracy versus godfatherism in the workplace? This is an interesting question, and I think that it also would give an opportunity for the panelists to just talk about, in the workplace dynamics, being a Muslim, being a leader. First of all, I really believe that it's very important. Like Sister, let me get your name correctly, spoke earlier. Sister Toyin spoke earlier about where she worked before, she struggled to perform her salat, and then this where she works now, there's a prayer room. The reason why, because in some conventional workplaces, there could be a prayer room and it could have stemmed from maybe because one of the orgas there is now is a Muslim, or someone in HR is a Muslim. So I also think that positioning within organizations as Muslims is very key, because some of the things that we need or can help us will only happen if one of us holds leadership position. So, so I would just like this question to center around, general workplace dynamics and what you guys think about meritocracy, and godfatherism. I'm sure, obviously, we all will promote meritocracy, but just workplace dynamics and some of the things you guys have experienced. I would like to just hear from you all. So whoever wants to take it up can just unmute and dive in, please.
Let me start out then. Thank you. I find so I firmly believe that you should be the best at what you do, right? And there's something we say, no to mediocrity. So mediocrity is just being average. You have to be the best, right? Now, while I, advocate for, promoting Muslim professionals, and I'm very, into it. If there's somebody that can do the job better than you, I will not select you just because you're a Muslim. I don't think it's right? However, if you are the best and you happen to be a Muslim, excellent, then you can do the job. What does that mean? It means that you shouldn't let that define you. You shouldn't let that, you should work hard. When I mentioned competence earlier, I mentioned knowledge building earlier. Let's not, and it's also part of role modeling. How would it look if, as a leader, you put somebody in a role who clearly cannot perform as as excellently as somebody else, simply because the person is also not a Muslim? So in terms of role modeling, you've even missed it in both ways. So the organization will not get the best out of the person, and even you as a person, you've labeled yourself as unobjective, right? And being actually unjust. So I don't believe in that. I believe that you should be the best. And if you also happen to be Muslim, excellent, then you can play the role. That's where I stand on that. So we should just work hard to be competent, and you will be chosen, you'll be selected. You will be chosen and selected. That's the way I say it. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I know I can just imagine that Brother Olagoke wants to get on this one. Who wants to go next? Just go ahead.
I can add to it. I think it's been well said. Muslims are known for excellence. We strive for excellence in everything we do, in our spirituality, in our physicality, in our mentality, in our leadership. We are leaders, and we should exemplify that excellence in everything we do. But as we strive for that excellence, we must be humble enough and defer that excellence and know that excellence is granted by Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah only, the narrative of you tying your camel, we continue to strive for the excellence, but it's with Allah's rahmah that you get it. So when you now have it, or when you are seen as that very knowledgeable, very competent individual, we must be grounded. We must remain humble that this is because of Allah and because of the rahmah of Allah. In fact, being a leader, a Muslim leader in a secular environment, puts an additional responsibility on you. You must be fair, not just to Muslims, but to non-Muslims as well. You must be the go-to person. They know that when they come to you, that Muslim manager is always going to be fair, would hold everybody to the same account, on the same level of delivery and quality. On that note, I actually believe that the excellence that we're talking about is not just in action or in words, in appearance as well. A Muslim is not that person that walks in and they're covering their nose or their noses. Oh, he's here now. You look clean, you have self-confidence, and you don't have the impression that you know it all. You must consult. You must seek feedback from, mentorship was mentioned earlier. There's another one I'm going to add, which is reverse mentorship. Sometimes you don't see your blind spot, but you being grounded, being humble enough to be able to seek feedback from the people that are supposedly below you, sometimes give you a better perspective. It gives you a different way of connecting with your Lord while serving as a manager. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
So,
Bola,
panelists that want to go ahead and talk.
Bola, we do have significant about 12 questions on the Q&A tab. So I think we should just focus on that for the few minutes that we are supposed to have. Thank you.
Yeah, let me ask you the next one. Kindly address Islamic perspectives on working in a conventional bank as a Muslim. Anyone wants to take that? Conventional bank, meaning interest-bearing banks. I have strong thoughts about that. And I know that some of the panelists might disagree with me, but this is how I look at it. If the founders of Lotus Bank didn't work at GTB, we won't have Lotus Bank. So that's my comment too. Someone else fights me over it. But I would just like to hear you guys' thoughts on it.
Okay, I'll go. I worked in a commercial bank as well. I worked at Stanbic IBTC for a long time. So I do not begrudge anybody working in a commercial bank. However, you need to understand your level of Iman. You need to understand where you stand from a spiritual perspective and how confident you are working in a place where you could get better alternatives that will also align with your spiritual beliefs as well. So we need to balance that properly. Toyin used the word flirting, those that are flirting with the faith, which is some people are not yet as strong enough to believe that if I stay out of where I'm working, I might not, doesn't mean I'm going to suffer. I'll still get very, very good jobs, And also in a country where we have like Nigeria, where the opportunities for a lot of people, are not just there we have just 4 Islamic banks, for example. How many people can they hire? How many people are getting out of the universities? So we need to also be practical from a rural perspective and understand that what are the options for these people. Having said that, it is still key and critical as a Muslim that you must understand that it is better for you if you are in an environment where you are comfortable as a person. certain
You
and
still on? Okay.
comfortable with your dean to,
Okay, I think we lost
say, I'm
Akeem.
not working in a just.
Okay.
Still on, it's still on.
Okay, yeah. So my point is that the drive is to try and be where you are working that is aligned with your faith. However, if there are circumstances that make you to be where you are not meant to be, you should, in your own space, plan to live where you can live, and only be there just for the minimum period that you need, whether it's for experience purposes, whether it's for you to be able to learn one or two things, then go and deploy it elsewhere. Allow Alan.
Thank
Can I
you
add to
very
that?
much.
Can I add to that,
Okay,
please?
okay.
So,
Go ahead,
I
because
don't
I
know why
also
Bola,
but I'll
I
let
don't
you
know
take
why
that.
Bola automatically assumed that we'll have contrary views when he said when to fight you. You know why? Because of necessity, right? There's some situations where necessity
Is that Sharia
applies.
though?
So
Is that Sharia? So
yes,
necessity.
exactly.
That's
There's where necessary. So, for example, you are starving, there's nothing to eat, and a pig walks by. You're about to die of starvation. You're actually allowed to eat it to survive. And then once you see the next cow, of course, you can't eat the pig anymore. There are different situations like that. So we've operated a conventional system for decades, right? Islamic finance in Nigeria started about 19 years ago with Lotus Capital. And the industry is slowly growing to accommodate so many, parts. You have the banking, you have fund managers, you have recently pension, you have Takaful. Takaful is insurance. However, it's still not enough to accommodate everybody work-wise, right? So there's what you call necessity. Well, fine, you can work there for now. However, it doesn't mean that you can consume interest. So I will advise that even if you work in a bank, because there's nowhere, I mean, like Akeem said, you have just 4 conventional banks and most of them are new. How are they going to hire everybody? However, even because that exists, try not to be the consumer of the interest. Try not to be the consumer of the interest. You may not have a job in a non-conventional institution, but you can actually place your money there. And whatever returns you're getting, you can get it in the halal way, so you can pay zakat. Remember that even in paying zakat and all that, you can't pay zakat on interest. So how do you fulfill your obligations? So at least you can try to ensure that what you earn is halal, and you work there. And as Akeem said, hopefully you put the lookout, put it in prayer, and then try and get out as you can. But there is what is called necessity, to my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you very
Well, I don't know
much.
if you allow me to add one balanced view
I'm
to
waiting for
this.
you. Please go ahead.
I'm in agreement with what most of my brothers and sister Toyin said. But we need to be mindful of the severity. And I'm not saying that none of my sister or brothers are trivializing interest at all. That's not what I'm saying. Yes, we strive for excellence, but we must never forget the utmost goal of why we're here. And certainly, this subject that you just raised is a very specialist. When the Mufassirun are talking about this, they go days and days. They have different, scholarly evidence for and against. Our role on this call is not to argue for and against, but to be practical. And certainly, there are necessities that perhaps would put us in a situation where we are there. I've been there before. I've worked at Barclays. I've worked at HSBC. These are conventional organizations. But in all of that, my advice for us, listeners, leaders, aspiring leaders, is that we must see it as a temporary measure, and be sincere to ourselves and our Lord that we're constantly doing something to get out of it. And in our actions, in the networking that we're doing, and in everything. And innamal a'malu binniyat. Your intention, Allah judges by your intention. But in Islam, intention is not enough. You have to follow it with action. Yes, you have an intention not to work in a bank, yet you sit there and you're consuming riba, and you know that Allah said on the day of Qiyamah, if you are consuming river, you'll be in a fight with him on the day of Yom Kippur. So it's not a subject to be trivialized. Neither am I saying that it's a subject to be addressed just, from a theoretical standpoint. There are practical consideration when we discuss the matter. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. And Allah and His Messenger knows best. Thank you. Akeem, I think you're muted, Akeem, if you're speaking.
No, I was trying to get the attention of the moderator.
Yeah, I think he's probably, yeah, he's back.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's try. I want to get this particular question in, particularly because I wanted to say something about. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure. Do Muslims celebrate this? Is it part of Sunnah? But I'm just going to go ahead. Say, Salam alaikum. In line with IWD International Women's Day celebration today, I wish to ask either of the women panelists about their experiences, challenges, and aspirations, focusing on their faith and personal journey. When and where are lines drawn?
Can I take that, please?
I was expecting you to take that.
Okay. Okay. Where and when are lines drawn for women? First off, I don't know who asked that question, but the role of women in faith-based leadership is a bit technical. We still have barriers to female leadership, either by cultural means or traditional means, or sometimes some people even hide behind religious reasons. People would always illustrate the interpretation of our scripture, the Quran, to the best of their own interest. So we still have barriers, we have challenges, constant challenges, cultural and societal challenges that hinder us as women in our role as leaders in society. But in navigating those challenges, I always reiterate spirituality. I know everything I say goes back to spirituality, because at the end of the day, the success and failure of any of the prophets' Huma will start and end with our spirituality, our relationship with Allah, with our deen, with our book, with our practices, our religious practices. So for women, I would say that to avoid all those problems that we usually have, we have to make sure that at every point in time, we practice with gratitude, humility, and regular reflection. So when you're grateful for the opportunities that you have, you are able to forge ahead the best way you know how to. When you're humble in everything that you do, you have very little or no expectations whatsoever from anywhere. And you know that whatever you have done, according to the guidance and support of Allah, you have done your best and you have tried your best. Regular reflection would enable you to check yourself, checks and balances here and there, to know where you can put in more work or where you need to take a step back. So for women, I know it's International Women's Day, and happy Women's Day to every woman listening to this program right now. The issue of women's role in leadership is still although the Quran allows us to interact and to be included, because we have stories about kiss in the Quran. We have the story of the wife of the Prophet, Khadija. These are women that were very notable. Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, notable women in Islam that had very remarkable impact on their society and their community. So I would just continue to say that the challenges are there, as I've said. We will try our best to navigate the best way we can, and to just make sure that we continue to self-reflect, so that we don't do too much or we don't put in well enough. So I'm not sure if I was able to tackle that question, but that's my take on it.
Thank you very much. Sister Toyin, do you want to chime in? That was a very specific
Well,
question. I like it.
I'll just say that, yeah, I mean, women have faced prejudice or bias and, in their professional lives and things like that. And the most important thing is just to double down on the same things we've been talking about, and you will stand out. So by the time you are competent, competence is the first thing. By the time you're competent in whatever it is you do, then there's I mean, even if you go to primary schools, oh, who is the first? Is it a girl? Is it a boy? All that is being slowly, all the one of putting the girls below is slowly eroding, and it's just giving them the same. As long as if you can give a girl the same opportunities that you give a boy, educate them the same way, they will perform. And I think with time, all that is being hopefully, I mean, happy International Women's Day. And the theme for this year is accelerate action. So, I mean, there are different organizations doing things to help women to do better. But I just think that as long as you can concentrate on being the best you can, being the best that you are, you will stand out, and it would not matter whether you're a girl or a woman, you would achieve what you need to achieve by Allah's grace, of course. It's always by Allah's grace. And I was also going to mention that, I mean, the person that said, oh, women, I can count like 10 women that, amazing. You have Hajara, you have Hawa, you have Zara, so many women that did, even Hawa, our mother Eve, from there, Khadija, Aisha, Fatima. Oh, so I mean, and those are excellent examples of women who have stood out, even in Islam. So, and be brave, courageous, very important.
Thank you very much. Brother Olagoke, you are needed up front. Salam. Mr. Lawal's answer seems to ignore those who do not have that much latitude to act differently in adherence to their faith. E.g., you work in a government agency and there is need to arrange a reception for visiting heads of nations or whatever. How do you insist your faith in I'm just reading verbatim, in carrying out the assignment? So I'm guessing maybe there's some riba involved, there's some squeezing and greasing palms or whatever. But I've read this question. I think a lot of it has to do with compassion and empathy. That is there room for that when we are considering adherence to Sharia and faith and everything like that? What are your thoughts? I know we spoke about necessity earlier, but in this kind of scenario, and this question was directed to Brother Lawal. And also, Brother Akeem, you've not spoken in a while. If you also want to chime in after him, go ahead.
No, certainly. I think we're not oblivious to the fact that sometimes you are in a situation where necessity requires you to do some things. I think what the questionnaire is asking is in relation to they work for a government parastatal. They have to organize a function, and that function requires maybe having alcohol and so on and so forth. Our way of life as Muslim starts and ends with the Quran and the Hadith. And the Prophet, as I said before, said that al-halal bayyina wal-haram bayyina wa ma baynahuma umuhu mutashabbihat. Even the person that's asking the question knows ourselves that perhaps there's some impermissibility based on our deen to participate or be involved in some activities. But when you find yourself in situations like that, seek the guidance of Allah and proactively ask Allah for sustenance that's not going to compromise your deen or your faith or the requirement of Allah. And be sincere in that prayer. Wallahi, you'll be amazed what Allah will do. A quick example of back then when I was in the corporate, there are instances where every other week they just want to go and socialize at the pub. I live in the West. And for a long time, I would just find an excuse. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say I'm not coming. I'm just don't have the confidence without being labeled to say I'm not coming to the pub. But every time I'm avoiding that situation, I'm running back to my Allah to make sure that Allah makes this situation easy for me. And wallahi, what transpired afterwards was that gradually you attain the position of influence because of your sincerity. And Allah says, وَيَرْزُقُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَا يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ مَخْرَجًا. You see, when the way Allah will create space for you, will create opportunities for you from where you least suspect. The condition is your sincerity. And you truly, truly don't want to do this, but I'm just doing it because I have to put food on the table for my family. But as soon as I do it, I go back into sujood and say, Ya Allah, take me out of this situation. I can do better. I don't want to meet you like this. I don't want to meet you serving alcohol. Ya Allah, please. And wallahi, tallahi, if those prayers are sincere, Allah will come to your rescue. Continuing that story, few months, few years down the line, I've achieved and attained position of influence that I can then dictate where the social networking event happen. In fact, initially, I would put myself forward to organize it. And slowly but surely, I start to influence it. And that's what I said in my prelude, in my opening statement. Leadership is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It's your opportunity to do good, the opportunity to do something great to benefit others. So I hope I've answered the question, which is that if it's a necessity that you find yourself in, provided you are truly sincere to your Lord and you're constantly praying, Allah will provide a way for you from places where you least expected. And Allah and His Messenger knows best. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think so, but Akeem, do you want to chime in? If not, I'll go into the last question. We'll take and then we can wrap up.
Yeah, let's go on to the last question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I said you could go ahead with the last question. I'm okay with the submission by Goke.
So there's a question around, and maybe we can make it broader, but there's a question around what efforts are being made to roll out halal products in conventional banks as leaders in this space. Now, I want to draw a line with my view, because some people are hardliners on the, if it's an interest rate bank, it's just generating bank, don't work there, anything like that. And I mentioned about Lotus Bank that if people didn't work at GTB and make it at GTB and become leaders, then help set up Lotus Bank. We won't have Lotus Bank. If, for example, we didn't have someone like the current MD of Sterling Bank, who's a Muslim, I'm not sure we'll get to the point where we have alternate bank. I think that's what it's called. So again, I'm trying to approaching leading from within standpoint that I'm of the opinion that we need more of our people in these conventional places so we can incorporate how we feel we need to live and we need to follow Islam and Sharia. So this question, I would like to make it bigger and say, what are your thoughts on us being part of the system? Because like we said, there are only 4 of this kind of banks, for example, and how many people can those banks hire? But if we look at the strategy from, changing from within, like, for example, I've asked my friends, how many HR managers do you know in Nigeria that are Muslims? Like I asked that day, and they were looking at me, and they started thinking about it, and they were like, they couldn't talk. I run a very large community, and I know a lot of people, and I don't know one HR manager that is Muslim, or someone leading an HR firm or anything that's Muslim. I don't know one. I don't know one. And so some of these things too, changing and leading from within, I just want to get, and maybe we'll open this up to the entire panel, and then we can close from here because we need to close in 6 minutes. So changing from within, because what efforts are being made to roll out halal products in conventional banks? I think the bigger question is, if we have more Muslim leaders in conventional settings, can we change from within, and can it help from a bigger view standpoint? Because some of the organizations like Sharia compliant are not just enough, and people need to get jobs. So I'll kick it off to Brother Akeem, and let's see who else wants to chime in.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawal. Yeah, so I think it is extremely important, that we Muslims that find ourselves in organizations, banks, for example, and all of these financial institutions, we try to attain very, very high leadership positions of influence. And we shouldn't disregard any role. I mean, you mentioned a very, very critical role, HR leaders. We need to have significant amount of HR leaders, because even amongst organizations, that are non-interest Islamic banks, for example, we have a number of them that the HR leaders are also non-Muslims. We cannot rule out, the position of bias in some of the decisions that people take. We are human, so yes, we can flaunt meritocracy as much as we want, but the fact that we are human also means that there are some decisions we take, subjective decisions that are based on our faith and our belief. So if you are, in politics, for example, or if you're in a high position, if you want to build, you're in a position to influence the setup of a university, setup of this, of that. You find a Jonathan setting up a university in Otoke. You find a Buhari setting up a university of transportation in Daura, So you have people, you have to just fend for yourself first, where you come from. So we need to have Muslims in positions of authority. We need people that can speak for Islam behind the doors, and be able to encourage or institutionalize opportunities for Muslims to be able to bring forth products that will benefit Islam and benefit Muslim Ummah in wherever and whichever roles they find themselves. The financial institution is an example, and I think critical roles, even leadership, being an ED, being the head of operations, head of HR, these are all positions that we should aspire to be, and we should demonstrate competence. And when we have the opportunity of also letting people know that you are a Muslim, let people know you are a Muslim, and bring products that will serve and enhance the deen, in any way you find yourselves. Thanks. I don't know if someone else would like to speak as well.
Does anybody want to chime in? Rounding up, so does anyone chime in on this? Dr. Adeduntan, please feel free to also chime in on this, because you've lived this experience. So you're probably the best person.
Have a hard stop at 3:30. And I think Doctor would like to give some sort of a closing remark. Thank you.
Before the closing remark, please, can I quickly chip in something?
Go ahead, Ajia. Go ahead.
Yes, there's a question that I have interest in. The person said, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please, how can I train myself in a spiritual way? So I'd like to quickly chip in these things. So for this particular person, Bosarike, may Allah make it easy for you. Kindly continue to seek the guidance of Allah by incorporating little practices. You would go a long way when you do those little things. I've typed out all those answers, but I would just like to share it for those also listening. Have a very clear intention, have realistic goals, know exactly what it is that you want. You want a spiritual journey, but be very realistic about it. Set those goals and applaud your efforts, no matter how small. When there are some people that are doing tahajjud prayers of 20 rakas, if you're able to do just 2 rakas, you've done so well. Our religion is a religion of intention, and we get rewards for even the littlest of effort. In fact, sometimes even for no effort at all, just by having the intention. Like this question already, you already gained a reward for actually seeking, more ways to be spiritual. And lastly, commit yourself to spiritual practices, your 5 times daily prayers. Try your best possible to always make sure that they're on point. Your dhikri in your quiet moment, la ilaha illallah, astaghfirullah, alhamdulillah, subhanallah. These are things in the remembrance of Allah will hearts, we find rest. So try to incorporate all of these little practices. You can be reading and digesting spiritual books, content online. Make sure that the contents that you watch online are those that always motivate you to be better towards your spiritual journey. And lastly, surround yourself with like minds. This is a very beautiful program that you've attended. Kudos to you. Find more programs like this to key into. Have friends that encourage you to do. This would help you to accelerate. It will help accelerate your journey into spirituality. May Allah make it easy for all of us. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, 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 rabbil alameen. We've been here for 2 hours actually, which is a very long period for senior professionals like our panelists to have dedicated to the cause of Allah. So the starting point is to appreciate each and every one of you, a highly distinguished panel. Again, coming at this time with all the commitments to Ramadan, all the commitment that we all have, the only word we could say is out of our position to reward you. We just beseech Almighty Allah to accept the time you spent, the knowledge you've shared as act of worship. A couple of things that I would like to emphasize for all of us. And I believe, I don't know who made the point, I think it was actually Akeem or Olagoke that made the point about physical appearance. One area where we don't do too well, and this is me who have sat on panels and panels and panels trying to select directors, trying to select people for different roles. It's just even the physical appearance. So again, I believe this conversation is going to be an ongoing one. And part of enhancing our professionalism, our leadership, it's about physical appearance. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to also be even someone who gets involved in even physical exercises. I tell people that to succeed, when you even, there are about 4 cues I always emphasize. Intelligence quotient, IQ, EQ, which is emotional quotient. Then there's a spiritual quotient, which is what we're trying to cover. But there's also the physical quotient. You need to be physically fit. You also need to be physically, the word is not attractive. You don't want to be physically unattractive or repulsive to the people that would either interview you or would give you the opportunity. So that brother that mentioned it is extremely important, and it's applicable to male and female. And these are areas where we tend to fall on that. The point about mentorship and reverse mentorship is also very important. Coincidentally, it's part of the topic we are contemplating even before the end of Ramadan for another panelist session like this to say, how do we put a structure in place that allow experienced professionals like our panelists and other people who are successful Muslim professionals to help the larger society to ensure we have that critical mass. The point about having the voice at the right place, I believe was Akeem that made that point, is extremely important. Where I come from, they will tell you that you can't question the way things have been shared when you are not a member of the panel or a member of the committee. In fact, for those of us, I'm a fan of Sakara music. Yusuf Olatunji said, if you are not a member of the committee, you will always come out on the wrong side of their decision. So very important point that as we build this community of young Muslim professionals, we should fire ourselves up. We must have ambitions. We must have people who wants to get beyond the level where people like me got to, who wants to be MDs of large organizations, large corporates. And through that, you are in position to influence policy, influence decisions, and ensure that we have our voice at the right level. I believe this is just one part of the several conversations we should be hoping to have as Muslim professionals, especially as we seek to expand this space where we know. Whereas when you look at the larger society, we are probably X percentage of the society. But when you look into the professional world, we're probably a fraction of what we are in the bigger population. So part of what we should be seeking to do, given what Allah has done for each one of us, is each one of us should be committing to say, how many people will I mentor to ensure that over a period of time, we have more and more people, Muslims, occupying responsible position in a multi-religious environment like us, where we have the opportunity to showcase that indeed, as Muslims, we are the best community that Allah has indeed raised. Thank you so much, dear brothers and sisters. It's been I like the quality of the discussion, the quality of the panelists, the quality of the questions itself is very deep. And I would like to appreciate our coordinator, Adewale Imran Salami, for the excellent job he's doing. There will be another one, that there will be several ones. The plan is to make this a quarterly thing as we expand this space strategically. We are missing, but I believe when we have the critical mass, we can begin to put the right. Those of you who understand strategy, we can begin to say, how do we help ourselves? Because by expanding the space, we're actually helping ourselves. Thank you so much. Ma salam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
Yeah.
Salam. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. We do appreciate it. Salam.